I'm Kathy with Infection Prevention at Wesley. Like Shirley said, our numbers were not that low when we our numbers were already low when we started. So for us to kind of have some buy-in, when we were told, it was basically our chief medical officer, I think was on the board, and so we were kind of told, you're going. And so we were just like, okay, so we took off, we went here not really knowing what we were doing, what to expect. And we got here, and it was very interesting to hear about CLABSI, and of course I do all the CLABSI surveillance anyway at the hospital, so I was really excited. But then we kept saying, but our rates aren't very low. Our rates are already low, so you know we're already below the national average. And so we were having trouble, I think ourselves, kind of buying into actually taking the time to do all of this work and go to these meetings and bring another whole team together. And so that's partly why I think we struggled getting going in the very beginning. And so I'm just going to give you some of our rates. In 2009, we had 2 infections in our MICU. And we had like a 0.5 was our rate. In 2010, we had 4 infections in our MICU. That's why we chose them, because they had the most infections. That's why that unit got chosen. They had 4 infections in 2010, so we chose them to be our unit. Plus, they were also one of the units that had the least amount of stuff at that current time going on, where they were not going to be pulled in a bunch of different directions. And one of the other units had a brand new manager that was trying to figure out, you know, what they were doing. So. In 2011, when we started, we had 1 infection, and our rate was 0.3. We actually, from the time we started the program, I think the meeting was here in November or December, we had 1 infection in January of 2011, and we went, well, you know, we haven't even done anything, we're okay. And then we actually have gone 15 months without having a central line infection. So we were very, very And to say that we didn't have a culture change, we did have a culture change. The managers, anytime I started looking at someone or thought, you know, okay, did this person, were they on your unit? And they're like, oh, don't forget about that 48-hour rule. And, you know, so we really kind of went through and looked at all of the patients. We looked at processes. The MICU manager really became on board. She really took this to heart because she is a type of person that believes that, you know, it wants to keep her patients safe. And I think that helped and played a lot into us being able to make this accomplishment. And the staff did. At first, when we started making rounds, they were very, you know, why are you here and why are you telling me I'm not doing things right? And then they became more, we would walk on the unit and we're like, dressing's changed, you don't even need to bother going in. You know, I mean, it just became, they got familiar with us and they understood why we were doing it, and they learned as they went. And so now, like, whenever we go up there, the dressings are dated, timed, and everything's great. So it's really nice to see that change. And they do, and it is very competitive now. They are a very competitive unit. So the other thing I want to talk about is MIC was going along so great. We're like, yay! And then our peds had 7 infections in 3 months, and I was, you know, having heart failure. So our pediatric manager, who wasn't even in the CUS project, they were kind of doing knackery, and they brought a whole team together when we had these 7 infections in our pediatric unit. And they have a lot of oncology patients on our peds floor, and they were all seeming to be either GI babies that were coming up out of the NICU from having NEC, or they were oncology babies. And so they got a whole team together, and they actually kind of did CUSP. They didn't realize they were really doing CUSP, but they actually were. They were going back and looking at every single situation. We were doing huge investigations, and we were trying to figure out where, why, what changed. They had no central line infections, and now all of a sudden they've had 7 in 3 months. And so, you know, we were looking, did we have massive staff turnover? Nope, we didn't have massive staff turnover. Same nurses. What happened? Have we gotten just really complacent? So we did a ton of investigations. They did a ton of investigations, and then they decided this is what we're going to do. They went back and they redid all of their policies and procedures. They now, whenever they do blood draws, they put clean caps on. They do dressing changes. If somebody comes in with a central line, they go ahead and change that dressing and get it all cleaned up and take time at the minute they walk in the door. They did a lot of those types of changes, which really made a huge difference. One of the things that they did find out that they were doing was they were breaking into their TPN lines. Because they're pediatric patients, and they're I don't even know what the word is, but they always believed you have a central line, that's what you're going to use it for. So they broke into it to interrupt it to run vancomycin or whatever they needed to run, because they didn't want to put another stick in the child, because it's very dissatisfier to the patients and the child. So that's been their practice. So we really talked about putting in double lines, as which the more lumens you put in, the more likely you are for a central line infection. But at the rate we were going, we were not going well either. So there was a ton of discussion around all of this, and changing caps, changing dressings. We had every single nurse on that floor had to actually go to a class on central line dressing changes, learn all of the policies and procedures. They actually had to do a return demonstration on how to do a dressing change. And they're going to be doing that every year. They went out and talked to a lot of the physicians outlined in the doctor's offices, and told them the types of changes we were doing here, so everything would kind of be meshed with what was going on in the community. And it's still an ongoing. And they've actually gone over 300 days now without a central line infection, with all of their efforts that they did. So we're very proud of them as well. And it can venture outside of just the unit you're doing. I mean, we've proven that. And again, like I said, our actual overall hospital rate is 0.5. So we've maintained that very low rate for quite some time, and we're hoping,